You are sitting perfectly still on a bench, looking at the sunlight filtering through the trees, or staring out a quiet train window as the world blurs past. On the outside, everything appears completely serene. To anyone walking by, you look like a person simply enjoying a moment of peace. But inside your chest, there is a sudden, frantic racing. Your heart feels tightly constricted, your breathing turns shallow and restricted, and your mind begins spinning a chaotic, tangled web of worst-case scenarios. It is a strange, incredibly lonely experience to look at a perfectly calm room and feel an overwhelming sense of emergency. On the outside, there is no threat. There is no immediate crisis to solve, no alarm sounding, no physical danger standing in front of you. Yet internally, your system has flagged a hidden, invisible danger. It is that exhausting weight, the feeling of being constantly on guard, with your shoulders raised and your muscles braced, even when you are wrapped in a warm blanket in your own living room. We often try to force this feeling away. We lose patience with our own bodies. We look at our racing pulse and our trembling hands, and we feel a rush of frustration, demanding that our bodies simply snap out of it, demanding that we be normal, efficient, and unbothered. We tell ourselves to get a grip, or we try to rationalize the fear away by pointing out how safe we are. But pressure only breeds more pressure. When you meet an internal fire with harsh judgment, you only feed the flames. Your nervous system doesn't understand logic when it is terrified. It only understands safety. And it certainly does not heal by being scolded. When the inner storm hits, the path to calm doesn't come from a harsh command to stop feeling what you are feeling. It doesn't come from fighting the wave or pretending it isn't there. It begins when we change the way we speak to ourselves in the dark. It starts when we lean into the discomfort instead of running from it. Imagine sitting with a friend who is suddenly gripped by fear. You wouldn't yell at them to stop crying. You wouldn't tell them they are being ridiculous for feeling overwhelmed. You would soften your voice. You would sit a little closer. You would let them know that they are not alone in the dark. We need to offer that exact same tenderness to ourselves. The quiet storm inside you is not a sign that you are broken or weak. It is simply a sign that your body is carrying too much, that the cup has run over, and that your internal system is crying out for a moment of genuine, uninterrupted comfort. It is asking you to slow down, to drop the expectations, and to stop fighting your own skin. The next time the air in your chest feels heavy and the silent panic begins to rise, try to pause the struggle. Instead of trying to fix the storm, just acknowledge it. Soften your gaze, uncurl your fingers, and let your internal dialogue become a gentle, quiet shelter from the wind. Say to yourself, quietly and without demand, I can feel the storm right now. But I am right here. We can just sit through this together. There is no rush to fix it. It is in that tiny, soft shift from resistance to acceptance that the very first cracks of light begin to break through the clouds. It is so easy to get frustrated with our own reactivity, isn't it? You might find yourself overreacting to a minor delay, like a red light when you are already a few minutes late, or feeling an overwhelming, hot surge of irritation when plans suddenly shift at the last minute. Perhaps you experience a sudden, crushing wave of fatigue after a brief, tense conversation with a coworker. A fatigue so deep, it feels like you haven't slept in days, even though you just woke up. In those moments, it is incredibly easy to turn inward with blame. We criticize our minds. We call ourselves overly sensitive. And we wonder why we can't just glide through life's minor disruptions like everyone else seems to do. But the truth is far deeper and far more deserving of your gentleness. Your nervous system carries the memory of every single stressor you have ever faced. It is an exquisite, silent archivist. It stores the heavy tension of old arguments that were never truly resolved, the quiet exhaustion of prolonged uncertainty when you didn't know how things would turn out, and the immediate, lightning-fast reflex to protect yourself from being hurt. Your body remembers the times you had to hold your breath to stay safe, the times you had to swallow your words to keep the peace, and the times you had to keep running on empty because there was simply no one else to lean on. Carl Jung captured this deeply rooted reality when he observed, "The body is the vehicle of the soul, and it is through the body that we experience the world." When your pulse suddenly spikes for no apparent reason, or when your shoulders freeze and lift toward your ears like blocks of ice, your body isn't failing you. It isn't trying to make your life difficult, and it isn't broken. It is trying to protect you using the only language it knows. It is repeating a survival pattern it learned long ago, a pattern that once kept you safe when the world felt unpredictable or overwhelming. Your body doesn't know that the old threat is gone. It only knows that it feels a familiar echo in the present moment, and it is rushing to your defense. Recognizing this inherited defense mechanism is the very first step toward true, lasting relief. It requires us to stop looking at our physical symptoms as enemies to be defeated, and instead see them as messengers asking for help. Imagine how different it would feel if the next time your chest tightened or your stomach knotted in response to stress, you didn't meet it with anger. What if, instead of fighting the physical response, we learned to acknowledge it with a sense of gentle, profound understanding? What if we leaned inward and listened to the tightness, to soothe a system that has kept score for so long? We have to change the narrative. We have to speak to our physical self with the compassion of a steady friend. When you feel that familiar tension creeping into your jaw or making your hands shake, try to take a step back from the frustration. Let your inner voice soften. Acknowledge the hard work your body has done to get you to this day. You can tell your heart, "I know you are racing because you want to keep me safe, but we are okay right now." You can tell your tight shoulders, "You don't have to carry the weight of the past in this moment." We can let go, even just a little bit. By meeting your physical history with this kind of tender validation, you begin to rewrite the score. You show your nervous system that it no longer has to hold its breath, and that it is finally safe to let the old armor melt away. We spend so much of our lives wearing armor. From a very young age, we learn how to build up defenses to get through difficult seasons, demanding environments, or painful life transitions. We construct a thick, invisible shield to protect our softest, most vulnerable places from being bruised by the world. We become absolute experts at holding it all together, pushing through the deepest fatigue, putting on a brave face, and pretending that nothing can shake us. We smile when we want to cry. We say, "I'm fine," when we are crumbling inside. And we take pride in our ability to just keep going, no matter how heavy the load becomes. But keeping that shield raised requires an immense, agonizing amount of energy. It means every single muscle has to remain locked in place. Every nerve ending has to stay on high alert. And the mind has to constantly scan the horizon for the next potential blow. Eventually, the arms grow incredibly weary, the spirit drains, and the armor itself becomes the primary source of our exhaustion. The very thing we built to protect us begins to crush us under its weight. You might notice this burden most acutely when life finally slows down for a moment. You might find yourself with a rare, quiet afternoon to rest. Yet instead of relaxing, you feel an uncomfortable, buzzing restlessness. You find yourself pacing the floor, shifting items around on a shelf, tidying a space that doesn't need it, or constantly looking for the next task to fixate on. You try to sit still, but your mind races with an anxious urgency. This happens because your nervous system doesn't know how to put the weapon down. It has been in the trenches for so long that it mistakes peace for danger. It feels like if it lowers its guard for even a second, something terrible will happen. To soothe a hyper-vigilant mind that has forgotten how to rest, we must consciously and gently give ourselves permission to soften. We have to teach our system that the war is over, or at least that it is safe to rest between the battles. This kind of letting go cannot be forced. It has to be invited with immense tenderness. It sounds so simple, but telling yourself, "You can step down now, you don't have to fight this moment," can feel like the first deep, true breath you've taken in years. Imagine standing in front of a mirror, looking at the tired lines around your eyes, and acknowledging how hard you have fought just to survive up to this point. It takes an incredible amount of courage to look at your own defenses and decide they are no longer needed for the current moment. You don't have to throw the shield away forever if that feels too terrifying, but you can choose to lay it on the ground right beside you for a little while. When you feel that rigid, defensive posture taking over your body, try to speak to yourself with the warmth of someone who truly sees your struggle. Let your inner voice whisper to the tired soldier inside you. You can say, "Thank you for protecting me for so long. You did a beautiful job keeping us safe. But right here, right now, there is nothing we need to defend against." We are allowed to just be. Allow your shoulders to drop a fraction of an inch. Let your belly soften. unclench your toes. By deliberately choosing to drop the shield, even for just 5 minutes, you are sending a profound wave of relief straight to your nervous system. You are proving to your body that it is finally safe to stop surviving and beautiful to start living. Think about the specific tone of voice you use when you are under pressure. For so many of us, the internal critic immediately takes the wheel the moment things go wrong. It snaps, it judges, and it demands immediate, flawless perfection. When you misplace your keys, when you are already running late, when you stumble over a sentence in an important conversation, or when you fall short of a personal goal you desperately wanted to reach, what does that voice say to you? For most people, the inner commentary isn't kind. It barks. Why can't you just get it together? What is wrong with you? Why do you always do this? We often treat ourselves with a harshness we would never, ever dream of inflicting on someone we love. We mistakenly believe that if we are just tough enough on ourselves, if we criticize our flaws loudly enough, we can scare ourselves into being better, faster, and more resilient. But this harshness doesn't motivate us. It doesn't heal us, and it certainly doesn't make us feel safe. In reality, every single time you attack yourself with your words, your nervous system responds to the tone of that voice. It sends an immediate, frantic chemical signal to your body that you are under attack. And this time, the threat isn't coming from the outside world. The threat is coming from within. Your own mind becomes the predator, leaving your body trapped in a state of constant defense. What happens if we deliberately, consciously choose to shift that tone? What if, instead of an interrogation, we offer our hearts an invitation? Moving away from a demanding inner critic and turning toward a supportive ally is not a change that happens overnight. It requires practice, patience, and a willingness to learn a whole new language. It means catching yourself in those moments of self-judgment and actively replacing the phrase, "You're ruining this," with something infinitely softer, like, "This is an incredibly overwhelming moment, and it makes complete sense that you feel shaky right now." This shift is not about ignoring reality or pretending that life is perfect. It isn't about letting yourself off the hook or avoiding growth. It is about changing the internal climate of your mind so that healing and growth actually become possible. Think about a plant trying to grow in frozen, hard-packed earth. It simply cannot take root. Your spirit is the same way. It cannot heal in an environment of constant scolding and condemnation. It needs the warmth of validation to thaw out the tension. Imagine how your body would react if it knew with absolute certainty that no matter what mistake you made today, you would meet yourself with kindness instead of cruelty. If you knew that when you stumbled, the voice inside your head would be there to catch you rather than kick you while you were down. When you begin to practice a softer dialogue, you are actively changing your internal biology. You are soothing the frantic alarm systems in your brain by showing them that the environment inside your own head is safe. The next time you make a mistake, or the next time the weight of the day feels like too much to bear, pause before you speak to yourself. Take one slow breath. Soften the edges of your thoughts and try to use the tone you would use with a small child who is tired and trying their best. Let your inner voice whisper, "I see how hard you are trying. It is okay to be overwhelmed. We are going to get through this, one little step at a time, and I am not going to leave your side." When you speak to yourself this way, the fear begins to lose its grip. The tightness in your chest starts to ease, and you finally create a space where your nervous system can truly rest. When we begin to look closely at our daily reactions, we often encounter parts of ourselves that we would rather look away from. We discover the sudden, fragile insecurity that flares up when someone doesn't reply to a message quickly enough. We feel the sharp, irrational anger that surfaces over a tiny misunderstanding, or the heavy, suffocating urge to isolate ourselves, turn off our phones, and shut down completely when life gets too heavy. It is incredibly tempting to suppress these messy reactions. We want to push them deep down into the hidden basements of our subconscious, lock the door, and pretend they do not exist. We want to present a polished, calm, and perfectly curated version of ourselves to the world. But whatever we bury alive inside our own bodies simply grows stronger and hungrier in the dark. It doesn't disappear just because we refuse to look at it. Instead, it waits beneath the surface, leaking into our lives through physical exhaustion, chronic tension, and sudden outbursts that leave us feeling deeply ashamed. Carl Jung wrote extensively about this intense internal struggle, noting, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." When your nervous system flares up in a sudden wave of panic or defensiveness, it is very often a hidden, neglected part of your personal history asking for your attention. When you feel that sudden, overwhelming urge to run away from a genuinely good situation, or when you find yourself pushing away a supportive, loving person because their closeness feels terrifying, that is the shadow speaking. It is the part of you that was hurt long ago, crying out from the past. That younger, wounded version of you is still trapped in your body, convinced that the world is unsafe and that everyone will eventually leave or cause pain. When we meet these reactive moments with denial, anger, or self-loathing, we only reinforce that old terror. We leave that part of ourselves abandoned in the dark. To truly soothe our nervous system, we have to find the immense courage to face these patterns, not to fix them or punish them, but to hold them. Transitioning from running away from our shadows to standing still and facing them requires us to completely change our perspective. When a raw, uncomfortable emotion rises up inside you, try not to slam the door on it. Instead of saying, "I shouldn't feel this way, I am so broken," try to offer a space of profound, spacious hospitality to your own pain. Imagine sitting on the floor with the absolute, messiest, most terrified version of yourself, the part that screams, the part that sabotages, the part that feels completely unlovable. What if, instead of casting that part away, you wrapped your arms around it? What if you looked at your own defense mechanisms and recognized that they were just desperate attempts to keep you safe? By meeting these highly reactive moments with compassionate self-talk rather than frustration, we bring them into the warm light of awareness. You can look directly at your anxiety or your anger and whisper to it, "I see you. I know you are just trying to protect me because you remember how much it hurt the last time. It makes sense that you are scared, but I am the adult here now, and I promise you, we are safe." When you speak to your deepest fears with this level of tender validation, you rob them of their disruptive power. You stop fighting yourself. The internal civil war comes to an end, and your nervous system finally receives the message that it can stop bracing for an impact that is never going to come. So much of our daily anxiety, that heavy, constant background hum that never seems to fully turn off, comes from the exhausting, relentless attempt to control the uncontrollable. We spend hours analyzing past conversations, turning words over and over in our minds, wishing we could go back and change how we said something or how we acted. We replay choices we made years ago, torturing ourselves with the endless, painful loop of what-ifs. And when we aren't looking backward, our minds are rushing forward, trying desperately to predict every single turn the future might take, trying to script every outcome so we won't be caught off guard. We mistakenly believe that if we worry just enough, if we plan down to the microscopic detail, and if we anticipate every single disaster, we can somehow prevent bad things from happening. We use worry as a shield, believing that chronic hyper-vigilance is the price we must pay to keep our lives from falling apart. But this constant, frantic overthinking keeps our survival responses on high alert, day and night. It floods our bodies with adrenaline and cortisol, keeping us trapped in a perpetual state of emergency. You can feel this control loop living directly in your physical body. It is there in the tight, painful clenching of your jaw when you are just driving down the street. It is there in the way your shoulders creep up toward your ears, or the way you hold your breath while waiting for a text message or a piece of news, completely unaware that you have stopped breathing until your chest begins to ache. We are holding ourselves so tightly, trying to hold the whole world together with our own sheer willpower. But it is an impossible task, and it is wearing us out down to the very bone. Real safety doesn't come from achieving the impossible feat of guaranteeing a perfect, predictable outcome. Life is beautifully, terrifyingly fluid, and we cannot bend the entire universe to our will. True internal peace comes from knowing you can handle whatever arrives on your doorstep. It comes from trusting your own capacity to navigate the storms, rather than exhausting yourself trying to stop the wind from blowing. A vital, deeply transformative piece of gentle self-talk involves reminding your nervous system of its own quiet, steady resilience. When you feel that familiar spiral of overthinking taking over, when your mind is racing down a dark alleyway of future worries, you have to learn to gently but firmly catch yourself. You have to anchor your awareness back to the only moment that actually exists. Try to stop what you are doing. Place a hand over your heart so you can feel the physical reality of your own life. And let your inner voice speak with absolute clarity and tenderness. You can say to your frantic mind, I cannot control what happens tomorrow. I cannot change what happened yesterday. I cannot control how other people think, feel, or react. But I can control how I hold myself right now. Look around the space you are in. Notice the solid ground beneath your feet. Remind your body of its immediate reality. Tell yourself, I am safe in this exact room. I am supported by this exact chair. Right here, in this tiny pocket of time, everything is okay. We don't have to solve the rest of our lives this afternoon. We just have to breathe through this 1 minute. When you consciously choose to surrender the heavy burden of trying to control everything, a profound shift happens inside you. Your jaw softens, your chest opens up, and your nervous system finally receives the message that it can step down from the watchtower. You realize that you don't have to be perfect to be safe, and that you are fully capable of meeting the future when it gets here. But for now, you are allowed to just exist right here. The words we choose to speak to ourselves in moments of distress carry a profound, pushti physical weight. They act as an emotional anchor for our entire physiology, steering us either deeper into the storm or guiding us gently back to the shore. When you are in the middle of a high anxiety response, when your heart is hammering against your ribs, your palms are cold, and a wave of panic is washing over you, your analytical, logical mind effectively shuts down. The part of your brain that understands complex spreadsheets, long-term planning, and intricate arguments goes offline, leaving you operating entirely on primal survival instinct. During these vulnerable moments, long, complex intellectual arguments will not reach the deeper, terrified parts of your brain. You cannot debate yourself out of a panic attack. You cannot lecture your nervous system into a state of calm by explaining the statistics of why you shouldn't be afraid. When your body is convinced it is drowning, it doesn't need a lecture on oceanography. It needs a life preserver. It needs short, rhythmic, and incredibly gentle phrases. Think of these words as a warm, steady hand placed firmly on your shoulder in the middle of a crowded, chaotic room. They need to be simple enough for a frightened child to understand, because that is exactly who is running your system in that moment. Phrases that carry a soft, unhurried cadence act as direct, chemical signals of safety to an overactive mind. When you deliberately slow down your speech and repeat phrases like, I am right here, we are not in danger, or this feeling is incredibly uncomfortable, but it will eventually pass. Just like every single one before it, you are doing something revolutionary. You are actively changing the internal environment of your body. You are cutting through the static of the panic with a frequency of pure, uncomplicated care. You are translating the abstract concept of safety into a language that your physical heart and lungs can actually understand and respond to. When you repeat these phrases deliberately and consistently, you are doing the beautiful, sacred work of reparenting your own fear. You are stepped into the role of the protector. Instead of abandoning yourself to the panic or joining in on the screaming by telling yourself to hurry up and calm down, you are choosing to stand as a fortress around your own vulnerability. You are providing the steady, grounding, and unconditional presence that you may have desperately needed, but never received when you were younger. Imagine how much comfort it brings to your system when, instead of hearing a voice that says, "What if this never stops?" it hears a voice that says, "I've got you. We are going to sit right here on the floor until the floor feels solid again. There is no rush." You are proving to your body, through the simple architecture of these safe words, that the adult you are today is fully capable of safeguarding your well-being. You are demonstrating that you no longer have to look outside of yourself for a savior to calm the waves. The next time you feel the ground shifting beneath you, practice building this verbal sanctuary. Don't wait for the panic to clear before you speak kindly to yourself. Speak kindly into the panic. Let your inner voice become slow, heavy, and infinitely tender. Whisper to your racing thoughts, "It's okay. I'm not going anywhere." Breathe in, breathe out. We are safe right now. With every soft repetition, you are building a bridge back to peace, showing your nervous system that no matter how loud the external world gets, the voice inside your own head will always be a place where you can find rest. Healing is not about cutting away the wounded parts of our history. It is not about performing surgery on your personality to remove the flaws, or successfully burying the moments where you felt weak, small, or broken. True healing is about bringing those scattered, hurting pieces back into a cohesive, loving whole. Yet, when we experience periods of intense stress, deep emotional pain, or overwhelming trauma, our natural instinct is to fracture. We tend to split completely off from our bodies, retreating upward to live entirely in our heads, just to avoid the heavy discomfort pulsing below the neck. We disconnect from our physical form because feeling it feels like too much to bear. When we live this way, we begin to treat our physical self like a troublesome, broken machine that needs to be fixed or managed, rather than a living, breathing being that desperately needs our care. We get angry at our exhaustion, we are disgusted by our anxiety, and we alienate the very parts of ourselves that are crying out for help. Carl Jung beautifully and profoundly described the ultimate goal of this human journey when he stated, "Individuation means becoming an individual, and insofar as individuality embraces our innermost, most incomparable, and unique uniqueness, it also implies becoming one's own self." To truly become your own self, you cannot leave any part of your story behind in the dark. You must welcome back the parts of you that are terrified, the parts that are exhausted, the parts that are deeply insecure, and the parts that are still grieving losses from years ago. Think about the versions of yourself you have tried to discard. The teenager who felt rejected, the child who felt invisible, or the younger adult who made painful mistakes while just trying to survive. Those versions of you aren't gone. They are still living inside your nervous system, reacting to the present world through your fears and your defenses. Gentle self-talk is the golden bridge that allows this integration to happen. It is the language we use to signal to our subconscious that every single piece of us is finally welcome to come home. It is a way of looking inward at your own mess and saying, I am not going to abandon you anymore. Transitioning from self-rejection to self-integration means changing how you respond when a painful memory or an old insecurity rears its head. Instead of pushing it away and saying, I should be over this by now, you open your arms to it. Imagine the immense relief your body experiences when you finally stop fighting your own history. When you feel a wave of kindness or a sudden flash of vulnerability, practice speaking to those fragmented pieces of yourself with absolute tenderness. Let your internal voice soften and call those hidden parts forward. You can whisper inward, I see the part of me that feels small right now. I see the part of me that is afraid of being rejected. Come closer. You don't have to hide in the dark anymore. I am here to hold you, and you are completely safe with me. By offering this spacious, unconditional hospitality to your own pain, you are piecing yourself back together, breath by breath. You are teaching your nervous system that it no longer has to split apart or freeze to survive the cold. You are proving that you are strong enough and gentle enough to hold all of who you are. In that beautiful, quiet reconciliation, the internal civil war ends. The fragmentation melts away, and you finally begin to walk through the world as a whole, undivided and deeply rooted human being. We must lose the exhausting, unrealistic expectation that a healed life means a life entirely free of discomfort. Somewhere along our journey, we buy into the quiet myth that if we just do enough inner work, if we practice enough mindfulness, or if we say the right words to ourselves, we will eventually reach a magical plateau where nothing can ever hurt or trigger us again. We imagine a state of perfect, unshakable serenity where we glide over life's bumps without feeling a single tremor. But that isn't healing. That is emotional numbness. The goal of this journey is not to become a statue carved of stone that feels absolutely nothing. The goal is to become a living, breathing human being who can navigate the heaviest waves without drowning in them. You will still experience days where the world feels far too loud, where a sudden, unexpected change throws you completely off balance, or where old, familiar insecurities flare up in your chest without warning. You will have mornings where you wake up with a tight, knot in your stomach, or evenings where a simple conversation leaves you feeling raw and exposed. The friction of life is inevitable. We cannot control the external weather, nor can we stop the world from being unpredictable, demanding, or messy. The victory does not lie in never falling. The true victory lies in how quickly and how gently you catch yourself when you do. It is the exact moment you pause mid-stride during a chaotic day, take a slow, deliberate breath, and say to your racing heart, "It's okay that we lost our footing for a second. We can start over right now." This single moment of soft awareness is where peace is found, not in the absence of the storm, but right in the absolute center of it. It is the willingness to be messy, to be human, and to treat your own stumbling with an immediate sense of warm, unconditional forgiveness. When you drop the demand for perfection, the friction of life stops feeling like a personal failure and starts feeling like what it truly is, a natural part of being alive. This ongoing, daily flexibility is what builds true emotional resilience. It completely transforms your relationship with stress from a terrifying, high-stakes battle into a manageable, fluid conversation between your mind and your body. When you allow yourself to have a bad hour or a shaky afternoon without judging yourself for it, you rob the anxiety of its momentum. You show your nervous system that a temporary surge of panic or frustration is not an emergency. It is just a passing cloud, and you are vast enough to let it drift through you. Imagine how much lighter your days would feel if you stopped fighting the friction and simply learned how to soften into it. The next time you feel the tension rising, or the next time you realize you've spent the last hour locked in an anxious spiral, try not to punish yourself for slipping back into old habits. Instead, let your inner voice act as a gentle brake on the wheel. Let your thoughts become incredibly kind and patient. Whisper to yourself, "We are experiencing a bumpy moment right now, and that is completely allowed. We don't have to get it right every single second." Let's just drop our shoulders, take this next breath, and begin again. Every single time you offer yourself this grace, you are reinforcing a deep foundation of internal safety. You are proving to your system that even when the outside world is filled with friction, the space inside your own heart will always be a soft place to land. At the end of the day, after all the striving, all the pushing, and all the seeking, your nervous system is simply looking for a safe place to land. It has spent years navigating a world that often demands you to be faster, stronger, more efficient, and more resilient than is humanly possible. It has carried you through profound losses, terrifying transitions, and quiet, lonely triumphs that no one else will ever truly understand. Your body has fought so hard for you. It has held your breath when you were scared, clenched its muscles to keep you upright when you were exhausted, and absorbed the shock of every emotional storm you have ever encountered. Coming back to a state of calm is ultimately not about achieving a new version of yourself. It is a return home. It is a return to a deep, unshakable, and life-saving friendship with the person you have always been. We spend so much of our lives looking outside of ourselves for this sense of home. We look for it in the validation of others, in the completion of a never-ending list of tasks, or in the illusion that if we can just fix everything around us, we will finally be allowed to relax. But true, lasting peace cannot be found in the shifting tides of the external world. The only home that can never be taken away from you is the one you build inside your own skin. It is the sanctuary you create when you decide that you are no longer going to be an unkind landlord to your own soul, but a gentle, welcoming guardian. The next time you feel the room shrinking, the pressure mounting, or that familiar, icy grip of panic beginning to take hold of your chest, remember that you carry the ultimate antidote within your own voice. You do not have to wait for the world to become quiet before you can find peace. You have the power to lower the volume of the world right now, from the inside out. Speak directly to your exhaustion. Speak directly to your fear. Soften your posture. Uncurl your tight fists. Let your belly relax. And let your internal dialogue become the absolute safest, most merciful place you know. Imagine waking up every day knowing that no matter how chaotic the world gets, the voice inside your head will always treat you with the ultimate tenderness. Imagine knowing that when you are tired, you will let yourself rest without guilt. That when you are sad, you will let yourself cry without shame. And that when you are afraid, you will hold your own hand through the dark. This is what it means to live in integration. This is what it means to be truly home. Let your inner voice wrap around your tired spirit like a warm blanket at the end of a long journey. Let it whisper with absolute certainty and unconditional love. We made it through the day. You don't have to carry the weight of the world anymore tonight. You are here. You are completely safe. You are so incredibly capable. And you are finally learning how to let yourself rest. Welcome home. Every single time you speak to yourself this way, you are healing the old fractures. You are teaching your nervous system that the long war is finally over, and that it is beautifully, safely okay to just breathe, to just be, and to lay your burdens down. If you take only one thing from this journey, let it be the realization that your nervous system is not something to be managed, fixed, or conquered. It is a living, breathing landscape that has absorbed every season of your life. It has bent under the weight of heavy winds. It has frozen over in the coldest winters of your grief. And it has stood as a silent witness to every moment you thought you wouldn't survive. When you look back at how far you have come, you begin to see that your reactivity, your anxiety, and even your exhaustion are not signs of defect. They are the deeply moving, physical proof of how hard your body has loved you, and how fiercely it has fought to keep you alive. The path to a quiet mind does not require you to become an entirely different person. It does not ask you to eliminate your sensitivity or to walk through the world with an artificial, unfeeling hardness. True healing is an act of reclamation. It is the slow, daily practice of turning toward yourself when you feel the most broken, and offering the exact same grace you so freely give to the rest of the world. It is the understanding that you are allowed to be a messy, unfinished, and beautifully complicated human being, and that your value is not tied to how perfectly you hold it all together. As you step back into the rhythm of your daily life, the noise of the world will inevitably try to pull you out of your skin. There will be moments where you forget everything you have read here. You will catch yourself holding your breath. Your inner critic will try to reclaim its loud voice, and your shoulders will instinctively rise to meet the pressure of the day. When that happens, try not to meet your slipping with anger. Do not view a stressful hour as a step backward on your journey. Healing is not a straight line. It is a spiral that constantly brings us back to the same places. Only each time we have the chance to respond with a little more gentleness than before. In those heavy moments, remember the power of the whisper. You do not need to shout down your fears, and you do not need a grand, elaborate plan to rescue yourself from the panic. All you need is the willingness to pause, to drop your gaze, and to speak one soft sentence of safety into your own heart. Let your internal world become a sanctuary where you are always allowed to start over, no matter how many times you lose your footing. You have spent so much of your life waiting for the conditions around you to change so that you could finally feel safe enough to rest. But real safety is something you carry within the very cadence of your own thoughts. It is the quiet certainty that you will never abandon yourself again. You are the protector you have been looking for. You are the comfort you have been seeking. And you are fully capable of holding your own peace. Take a slow, deep breath. Let the tension drain from your hands and walk forward with the knowledge that no matter what the world brings, you always know the way back home.